So you want to buy a hotel. Not build one from scratch, buy one. Slap a name on the front that everybody already trusts and let a company like Marriott or Hilton or Hyatt handle the marketing while you just collect the room revenue, passive income with a rooftop pool. Sounds easy enough. You've stayed in a Hampton Inn. You've paid the resort fee you swear you never agreed to. And at some point, standing at that front desk, you've probably assumed someone somewhere is getting rich off your $34 breakfast buffet. Here's the twist, that someone almost certainly isn't Hilton. Hilton doesn't own the building you slept in, doesn't own the mattress, the elevator, or the guy at the front desk either. In fact, of Hilton's roughly 600 hotels flying the Hilton name in the US, the company itself owns almost none of them. Marriott's the same story, just bigger, over 9,300 hotels across its brands, and Marriott International owns a rounding error's worth of the actual real estate. So no, you're not buying into an empire, you're buying into someone else's logo, and you'll be paying rent on it for the next 20 years. Now let's talk numbers, because this is where people get quietly wiped out before they've even opened the doors. Say you want a Hilton flag on your building. In plain terms, that means Hilton lets you use its name, its booking system, and its loyalty program for a price. The initial franchise fee alone is $75,000, and that's before you've built or bought a single brick. All in, Hilton estimates a total franchise investment of somewhere between $29 million and $112 million, depending on the property. On top of that, you're handing Hilton a 5% royalty on your room revenue, forever, plus another 4% for advertising. That's roughly 9 cents of every dollar a guest pays you, gone before you've covered a single light bulb. Marriott's version isn't any gentler. An $85,000 initial fee plus $300 per room once you're over 275 rooms, a 6% royalty, another 3% if you're serving food and drink, and 1% more on top of that. Run those percentages across a 300-room hotel doing decent business, and you're wiring 6 figures a month to Bethesda, Maryland, whether your hotel had a good year or not. And by the way, even the affordable end of this business isn't cheap. A Days Inn franchise starts around $195,000 and can run past $8 million depending on the property. A Hampton by Hilton, which remember is Hilton's own budget brand, built specifically to be the accessible way in, still needs an initial investment of $7 million to $17 million. That's the entry-level option. Then there's the fee nobody puts in the brochure, the PIP, short for Property Improvement Plan. If you are converting an existing building into a branded hotel, or honestly, even if you already own one, and corporate just decides your carpet looks tired, you get hit with a mandatory renovation bill. For a 100-room hotel, that is typically $1 million to $4 million. You do not get a vote on this, you get a deadline. Here's the part that actually explains why hotel stocks do so well, while individual hotel owners are quietly struggling. The big chains do not really want to own hotels anymore. They want to own the name. It is called the asset-light model, and it might honestly be one of the best businesses ever invented, if you're the one running it. Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, all of them spent decades systematically selling off their actual real estate to outside investors and operators, while holding on to the franchise agreements and management contracts. Why would they do that? Simple. Owning a building means owning a mortgage, a roof that leaks, a boiler that dies every February, and a balance sheet that gets wrecked the second travel demand dips. Owning the brand means none of that risk ever touches you. You just collect a percentage of everyone else's revenue, whether the hotel down the street is thriving or bleeding out. So no, you're not a partner in this relationship. You're the shock absorber. Inside the industry, they actually have a name for this: asset-light expansion. Decades ago, Marriott and Hilton both owned huge chunks of their own hotels. Today, ownership of the physical buildings sits almost entirely with independent investors, REITs, that is, real estate investment trusts, basically funds that just hold property, and third-party operators, while the parent companies focus on what actually moves their stock price, signing new franchise deals and collecting fees on other people's real estate. Genuinely brilliant if you're holding the brand, genuinely brutal if you're the one holding the deed. Now, in case you think this is just theory, hotel owners have actually taken this to court. A class action filed against Intercontinental Hotels Group, the parent company behind Holiday Inn Express and Staybridge Suites, accused IHG of using its property improvement plan requirements as basically a backdoor kickback scheme. The lawsuit claimed IHG forced franchisees to buy renovation materials and services only from IHG-approved vendors, then quietly collected rebates from those same vendors, all while telling owners the whole thing was about brand standards. One of the named plaintiffs, a Louisiana hotel owner running Holiday Inn Express and Staybridge Suites properties, said flatly that the arrangement had nothing to do with quality. It was about maximizing what IHG could squeeze out of people who had no real choice but to comply. And that's really the playbook in miniature. The brand sets the rules, the brand picks the vendors, and the brand gets paid no matter which direction the money's flowing. Sometimes this model doesn't just squeeze owners, it buries them. In January 2026, Wyndham's largest European franchisee, a Berlin-based operator called Revo Hospitality Group, managing something like 22,000 rooms, collapsed into insolvency after an aggressive expansion ran headfirst into rising costs. Wyndham, the brand, not the hotel owner, booked a charge of $160 million to cover the fallout, including writing down a trademark it had acquired years earlier. And Wyndham's own statement made the whole model painfully clear. The rooms stayed in its system, its overall numbers barely moved, and its 2025 earnings still grew 3%. The franchisee absorbed the collapse. The brand absorbed a rounding error. Closer to home, in October 2025, John Molina, a former Molina healthcare executive, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on Breakers Medzwa, the entity behind the historic Breakers Hotel in Long Beach, California. Molina and his partners bought the aging property back in 2017, struck a deal to reopen it under the Fairmont luxury flag, and sank more than $100 million into renovating it. The project ran long, ran over budget, and by October, a lender was already moving to auction off Molina's stake to recover its money. And through all of it, Fairmont, the brand, is contractually locked in to keep operating the property no matter who ends up owning it. Same pattern twice in the same 12 months. The owners take the financial hit. The brand keeps the hotel, the fees, and its name on the building. Now, not everyone loses at this game, which is exactly why people keep playing it. Take Bob Gagliardi, started with a $5,000 loan back in 1963. 4 years later, he opened a single Sandman Inn in British Columbia. He didn't invent some flashy brand or chase a global logo. He just kept reinvesting, kept building, kept buying one property at a time. Today, his company, Northland Properties, owns more than 60 hotels and resorts across Canada, plus restaurant chains and even a stake in professional hockey. Gagliardi's worth billions now, and he got there the unglamorous way. Decades of just quietly compounding ownership, not some one lucky building. Then there's John Molina again, the man behind that Fairmont-flagged Breakers Hotel. Same industry, honestly the same basic playbook: buy a property, attach it to a prestige brand, sink serious money into bringing it up to standard. Molina and his partners bought the aging Breakers in 2017 and spent over $100 million trying to turn it into a luxury Fairmont property. The renovation ran long, ran over budget, and by October 2025, he was in bankruptcy court while a lender moved to auction off his stake. Same industry, same model. One guy spent 60 years turning a $5,000 loan into a hotel empire. The other spent 8 years turning a historic building into a $50 million debt pile. The brand name on the door didn't create that difference. What happened underneath it did. So let's actually run the numbers on two very different bets. Scenario 1, the budget play. You buy a 60-room Days Inn conversion for roughly $2 million all in, property improvement plan included. At a modest 60% occupancy and a $75 average daily rate, that property brings in about $985,000 a year in room revenue. After Wyndham's roughly 9.5% combined royalty and marketing fees, plus realistic operating costs, staffing, utilities, maintenance, insurance, all of it running around 65% of revenue, you're left with maybe $250,000 a year before debt service. Finance that $2 million at a typical commercial rate, and your annual mortgage payment alone can eat $150,000 to $180,000 of that. So you're clearing somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 a year for a project that took your full-time attention and 7 figures of personal risk. Scenario 2, the full-service bet. A 150-room Hilton-flagged hotel built or bought for around $30 million. At 65% occupancy and a $180 average daily rate, you're pulling in close to $6.4 million a year in room revenue alone before food and beverage even enters the picture. After Hilton's 9% combined fees and operating costs closer to 60% of revenue on a full-service property, you're clearing roughly $1.9 million before debt service. On reasonable financing, debt service might run $1.4 to $1.6 million a year. Net to you, somewhere in the $300,000 to $500,000 range. A real return, sure, but one built on a $30 million bet that a single bad recession, a single surprise property improvement plan, demand, or a single Revo-style expansion mistake can wipe out in one fiscal quarter. Both paths work until they don't. And when they don't, the brand's name stays right there on the building. Only the name on the mortgage changes. So you want to buy a hotel? Congratulations, you now own a building, a mortgage, and a boss you pay 9% of your revenue to, who's contractually forbidden from ever losing. If you liked figuring out who actually gets rich off the businesses you interact with every day, follow this channel. That is exactly what we break down here, one industry at a time.